Good afternoon. I'd like to welcome you all to this school board meeting. Today is July 16, 2019, and we're gathered here for a meeting. We'll have an opportunity for those of you in the audience who would like to speak during our hearing of citizens. Please take a card in the back of the room, fill it out legibly, please, and hand it to our assistant, Linda Tremaine, who's filling in for our assistant, Kathy Thompkins, who's away on a much-needed vacation. Print your name and topic, and we'll get to you when we get to the hearing of citizens. Now, would you all please stand and recite the Pledge of Allegiance with me? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I didn't get the black and white code today.
Neither did I. Talk at the police.
Today we have 4 board members. Mrs. Ziegler is not with us, not able to be here today, so we will forge ahead. I'd like to take the opportunity at this time to welcome our Sarasota County Boys and Girls Club Star Leadership Training Program students who are here. And during the summertime, we have a number of classes that go through the Boys and Girls Club where young high school and middle school students are trained on how to be involved and be active board members and leaders in the community. After this meeting is over, we'll meet with you all and discuss some things and answer some questions. Would you all please stand, those that are in the audience who are members of the Star Student Academy. Welcome. Thank you. And you may sit down. And, we're just happy that you are taking your time from your summer to do this valuable work. And what I find is many young people over the many years that this program has existed have told me that once they've taken this program and been involved in high school, they go off to college, they go into careers, and they're much more likely and more confident to be involved with other things. So congratulations on the program, and thank you for being here today.
Hi.
Next, we have our superintendent's report and call on Dr. Bowden to give us some words of wisdom, some pearls of wisdom.
Great. So, as I'm sure you are aware, Thursday was a big day for us. The state released school and district grade information. Like any report card, there's a lot to celebrate. It also highlights some areas where there's some work to be done. I've asked Denise Cantalupo, our new executive director, to take us through the data at a school level and then to talk about our district reports. Denise?
Yes. Hello, good afternoon, members of the board, Dr. Bowden, Mr. Hardy. I have the pleasure of reporting on our school grade, and just to give a brief overview, I'll only take a moment. For all of our schools, elementary level, we had 17 A's, 3 B's, 3 C's, and 1 D. At middle school, 8 A's, 3 B's, no C's or D's. High school, 5 A's, 1 B, combination, 4 A's, 3 B, 1 C. Overall, we had 32 of our schools maintained an A or a B rating. We had 10 of our schools increase 1 or more letter grades, and I'd like to call out those schools. The schools that increased 1 letter grade from a B to an A, they are now A schools, are Bayhaven, Gulfgate, Atwater, McIntosh, Sarasota High School, and Northport High School. So maybe a round of applause for them. We had 3 schools make huge increases, and they're very special, from a C to an A, 3 elementary schools. They are Brentwood, Glen Allen, and Toledo Blade. So, if anybody's here from the schools. And we had 1 school in elementary increase from a C to a B, and that is Goshio. Great job for all of our schools, all of our students and teachers. So the school grade breaks down in several components, and our overall point value is still a 67%, which is quite high. We have a breakdown of school by school, and I can provide that at a later day if you would like to see that information. Okay?
Mrs. Brown?
So we anxiously await the release of our district and school report cards. We always huddle with our communications department in advance, and I have started a little habit of going to a school site on the day that school grades are released. Had the pleasure to stand in front of Alta Vista a year ago when they jumped to an A. Specifically chose to go to Brentwood on Thursday. I can think of no possible worse way to end the school year than the way the school year ended at Brentwood, but to know that they get to start their school year celebrating an A. And so we did some media availability. John Wida got an opportunity to brag on his school there. Just so proud of the work that takes place across this district, and super proud to maintain our A rating for a 16th consecutive year. So I know you have some questions.
Well, first I have some compliments. I mean, I want to compliment you, administration, and all of our staff, and of course our parents and students for working so hard to bring those grades up. I know how heartbreaking it was for Brentwood to miss that B last year. It was so close. That's what happened last year. We were so close to some of those schools that got C's. To see them all working together, and I know a lot of the other efforts that we're putting in, are paying off, and we'll continue to see that. And I really, really want to compliment you and our staff and everyone involved, because it's a wonderful feat that we're doing this. But I know that there's been some changes made in regards to, I know one of the schools that fell down was Emma.
Emma, yes, ma'am.
Have we got some plans for Emma, or what happened there, or can you tell us?
Sure. So Emma is a D. I will say that the state believes they're a D school. I don't believe that's a D principal. I do not believe those are D teachers, and I don't believe those are D students. But we're going to draw very near to Emma. We're going to, matter of fact, meet with them this week and begin writing plans, make sure that they have their supports in place, review the curriculum that they were using. Some things they were doing were kind of outside of the district norm a bit, and just make sure that we have a clear understanding. It's very interesting when you look specifically at the data at Emma. Their third and fourth graders made some huge gains. Unfortunately, that was offset by some losses in the fifth grade year. That includes science, which is only tested at fifth grade level. So we know that a lot of our efforts and our investments in summer learning is paying off, because we really chose a bottom-up approach where we started with the kindergartners and first graders and allowed it to bubble up. And so it's unfortunate those fifth graders at Emma have not gotten the benefit of our intervention. So in addition to working very closely with Emma Elementary, we also need to work at Booker Middle School, where these fifth graders will be in sixth grade next year, and to make sure that they have the supports that they need to be successful in middle school. And so you can anticipate some communication from me. I do anticipate having something on our August workshop agenda so that you have a clear understanding of what our action plan is for Emma, and make sure that they go beyond a D, move up to a C, and hopefully a B the following year.
And the other question I have has to do with the best and the brightest. I know in the past, if your school got an A and you were highly effective, you were going to get that reward. And they've changed that this year. I think they had to have a 3-point increase, and I don't know how Pineview could ever get a 3-point increase. Do we have those numbers yet? Which teachers will be eligible for that, or are we still working on that?
So there's multiple classifications of awards under the new Best and Brightest program. Gone is any reference to SAT, ACT tests on behalf of the students, which many of us in the profession always found a bit peculiar. And so now the program is based on where the teacher is located. Specifically, teachers who are highly effective at a school that has improved by 3 percentage points for the last 3 years. And so an average of 3, not a total of 3, which means that they have to have increased 9 percentage points over the last 3 years, not just improved 3 points last year. Matter of fact, we had some schools that even if you went down a point, you could have met that 9% threshold. And so our RAE department now is looking at the schools that meet that requirement. The state chose to allocate best and brightest dollars on a proportionate share. So regardless of the performance of the schools in your district, regardless of the evaluation of your teachers, what you got is a percentage of that pool of money. And what they said is if you were in the first classification, which is recognition, if you're a highly effective or an effective teacher at a school that improved by 3 percentage points over the last 3 years on average, then you would receive a designated award. Then there's also an award for the principals at that school if they have been there for a number of years. The remaining dollars can then be allocated to instructional staff. And that's a very vague concept when you get into board rule in regards to what exactly is instructional staff. Is it teachers? Is it guidance counselors? Is it paraprofessionals? Assistant principals, program specialists at the district office. When you look at how we evaluate, we even have executive directors at the district who are classified as instructional. So we're working through that language. We've asked for some guidance from the Florida Department of Education. They've said there will be some, but as usual, we'll be left to our own legal interpretations on that. One of the classifications of Best and Brightest Award is a recruitment bonus that is to be paid out of that, but the language says up to $4,000. So that means anywhere from 1 cent to $4,000 in certain certification areas. I believe the way the statute was written, it says the board has to come up with a plan. I believe that we are obligated to collectively bargain how that money is distributed. Is that any time there's an employee benefit, if we're paying bonuses to teachers, I believe we have to work collaboratively with the union to say, what do we want to do on recruitment? How do you want to distribute it? What definition are we going to use? And so once we have an idea of that data, we will need to meet to come up with a plan to propose to the union. They will have an opportunity to respond and to counter that plan in regards to how that best and brightest is distributed.
Is there another meeting planned to meet with them, or?
We do not have a collective bargaining session scheduled for July. We will be collectively bargaining in August.
Thank you.
Mr. Robinson.
I have a couple questions, but just to carry on with what Ms. Brown said, well, I know that we're doing a macro negotiations right now. Is this something that we can do separately from that, like an attachment to the existing contract, or will this have to be dealt with as part of the whole?
That is the guidance that we're seeking at this point. There's really two ways. You can do it as part of the contract. You could conceivably do it as an MOU, even though there's no language in the current contract and the current contract has expired. That's something that will have to be determined, and our board attorney will certainly have a voice in that, as well as the attorney that we use for labor relations.
And my humble suggestion, if there's any gray area, that we lean towards the most expeditious process possible. As far as one board member is concerned, I'd want to make it as streamlined, as quick, to get the money out to the teachers as soon as possible, not bog it down in the whole contract negotiation. That's just my one board member thing. I'm glad that we're doing the summer learning, and I know it's bringing fruits. But given what happened with the cut in funding, do you foresee us having to scale that back?
I do not. As a matter of fact, I project that we'll be increasing that. In future years, what we've allowed is for them to add years. And so we had schools that last year started with incoming kindergarten and first graders. This year they added second graders. Next year, we've committed that they'll be able to add their rising third graders. When we look at the data, we see that if we have those supports going into third grade, many schools have said, may we have the program for fourth and fifth. So I do anticipate that we'll increase our investment in summer learning as we implement at all of our title schools.
And I'm glad to hear that we're getting ME to come with an action plan next week. I have all the faith in their. I'm sorry, next month. I'm sorry, next week, next month. I have all the faith in the world and the staff, both instructional and administrative at that school and all schools in general. But I mean, while I'm up here and I got the superintendent to lobby for a second, can I just put a little plug in? I've said this multiple times. Garden dropped their grade, and I just hope that you can rethink about cutting the homeschool liaison on Garden Elementary. I mean, I think they need it now more than ever, especially since they dropped a grade. My own little lobbying, putting in with the superintendent.
To be anticipated.
I also have a couple of statements and questions. This science in fifth grade is a problem statewide. And I know, talking to Dr. Kingsley, we're feverishly working on some new ideas to implement next year. But I think we must be vigilant with those fifth graders, because fifth graders did not perform as well as their younger students in elementary. So I'm hoping we'll be looking at that group extensively this next year. Summer leadership, we had Dr. O'Shea out yesterday to Gosho Elementary, and I think he was blown away. And we're hoping that some of our universities will start working on science and some of the other things by bringing some of the students in. And Dr. Bowden may talk about this more extensively, but summer leadership is ending this week. And I think for those of you who might have an opportunity, Alta Vista has a lot of activities for parents going on between now and Thursday, and you might go to some of the other sites in South County as well. We had a videographer out yesterday looking at the afternoon STEAM session and doing some video, and hopefully we will be putting together a video that we can use with legislators and other members of our community to talk about summer learning. And I think a picture's worth 1,000 words, right? Jacob Oliva was not able to be with us this week. So, I think that the Summer Learning Institute is proving over and over again that Summer Slide is real, and that what we can do with these young students is very important. they were talking about plants yesterday. In the afternoon, I was in a robotics group with 2 young 8-year-olds, and I said, "How old are you?" And they said 8. And they said, "How old are you?" And I said, "I'm not 8." And they were actually making with Legos a bee with a little antenna, and the bee was buzzing. And we talked about, how we all need to protect our bees and be concerned about, the environment and what pesticides and other things that we were doing that's dangerous to bees and other of our helpful bugs in our environment. So I thought that was just, precious. But it was a really good day, and I would encourage all our board members to go and visit with one of our summer leadership. We're doing that North and South County, and it's really a wonderful engagement. One other thing, Gosho moved up to a B+, and I determined it was a B+ because it's rather short of an A. I think we ought to maybe look at some of the schools and a little more specific. But I keep hearing, charter schools are performing better than public schools, which I don't buy. And I think that we need to come up, and perhaps Dr. Cantalupo can help us with this. We need to know the school grades and break that down into the various different aspects of math and science and English. But we also need to look at the diversity within that school. And we need to look at the socioeconomics of the school. And I think that would be helpful to all of us to have a chart that included that as well, because I'm convinced, at least in our district, that those are some of the most important aspects. And my hat goes off to these schools that are Title I that have come up so much this year. So I think if we could have some of that information, because I think that really reflects as well. And when we look at schools on the whole, those are important factors, very important factors, because it's poverty, really. And when we look at this test, this wonderful end-all test scenario that we're all taking every year, which is way too many tests and way too much, at least from my opinion, it's really something that is highlighting poverty. And so I'd really like to see more of that. Mrs. Zucker.
May I quickly respond, just because it's a great opportunity to plug our data dashboards. When you want to kind of drill down, we talk about reading, but reading is tested in grades 3 through 10. By utilizing that data dashboard, you can get to individual grade levels. You can look at individual schools, groups of schools. You can look at racial classifications, students on free and reduced lunch. Really, any question that you can pose and conceive of, the data dashboard allows you to disaggregate that data. It's a tremendous tool. We've expanded that to allow teachers, not the general public, but teachers to get down to the individual school level. But as you have those different questions, those data dashboards are available to the public, and it's a great way. I spend time just clicking through and putting different scenarios in, and really you can get down to, how did a Hispanic female at Tuttle do on the Spanish on the science test. You can really get down to that level through those data dashboards, which is a tremendous tool that we have at our disposal.
When you say you can, who's you?
Any member of the public.
Yeah. But I want it on a chart. I would prefer it in a chart so I can see school by school.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay,
Mrs. Zucker?
you sure?
Just
I really just want to thank staff, especially our teachers and our students, because our students have also the ones that increase these scores for us, and our teachers in teaching them, and also our executive directors. We never say thank you to them, because you guys are there and you're always standing guard and making sure every school is doing something. So I just thank all of you. And also our community partners, those we cannot afford to ever forget. They're the ones that give us the extra funding, that let us go the extra mile, along with our $1 million that we get every 4 years that we vote on. That's what's allowed this district to be as successful as we are. And I know you might hear a lot of jabbering going on, but you look at the core of this district, and the core of this district is solid. And I just want to make sure that that doesn't get lost in all this gibberish that's going on. The gibberish we can solve. The core is solid. So thank you all for your participation in helping this district remain solid.
Mrs. Brown?
Thank you, Mrs. Zucker, because I did neglect to thank our public and our partners that we have that have helped us. But I wanted to tie into what you were saying, Ms. Goodwin, in that it's a reflection of the poverty. I spent the last week and a half up in Illinois, and I was reading the Chicago Tribune. Articles were the same, and Washington Post articles, they were the same. It says the grades aren't so much the education output as the grades are what the poverty levels are of the schools. There is a definite correlation between the two, except we've got instances where we rise above that, and that's what our small learning academies are doing. We're rising above that. We're trying to find ways to break that cycle, and that's the hardest part, is breaking that cycle. And again, thank you all for working so hard.
So before I conclude the superintendent's report, I just want to remind the board and the community that this Thursday, the state will be naming its State Teacher of the Year. We have a finalist in Shane Swayze from Oak Park School, so we are excited. I will have the opportunity. I know a number of you will be traveling over to Orlando on Thursday. We are so proud of Shane and excited to see where we land up on Thursday. That concludes the superintendent's report.
Thank you. And next we have the hearing of citizens. I have cards from 7 different individuals. First of all, I'd like to call up Vivian Bastoros. Vivian, if you would come up to my right here, please. And, oops, 2 more. And the light will go on green, and you will have 3 minutes, 2 minutes of green, and then a minute of caution. And please finish up. Just speak right directly into that mic.
The light?
It'll catch your voice.
How's that?
You push the top of it.
Perfect.
Top of it.
Yeah, just lean it like at a 45, a little bit more, push it back, push it back.
How's that?
More, a little bit more. Perfect.
Okay. I don't see a light. Sorry. Do I just start talking?
Yes, please begin.
Okay, well, my name is Vivian Basteros. I am a concerned Oak Park parent. I'm here to discuss the changes that are taking place at Oak Park, which I feel have threatened the physical and educational well-being of my daughter. I do fear for her. I feel the major problem has been the isolation of our nonverbal disabled children. I feel the cause of this is the numerous violations of the rules. To me, the rules are there to protect our children. When you violate the rules, you put my child at risk. I've taken the liberty of making and compiling copies of the rules I feel have been broken for you. I could just pass them on.
We can pass them over to Kathy Thompkins when you're finished.
Okay. The first rule I feel has been violated is Chapter 2.23 of the school board policies, which is when a new rule is made, the public is entitled to notice, an opportunity to be heard, openness, and the option to opt out. I propose we take this rule, put Oak Park rule on top of it, so that when the school wants to make a new rule, the parents are entitled to notice, an opportunity to be heard, openness, and the option to opt out. For example, if my kid can't be in the cafeteria for lunch, I'd like the opportunity to say, my kid will not be in the cafeteria for lunch. I think it's that simple. The second rule I'd like to point out is rule number 9.20 at the school board rules, which talks about the climate of mutual understanding between the school and the administration. It's based on communication. If we communicate with each other, then we will not have problems like we're having now. The next rule I'd like to discuss is Rule 9.10. The principal will encourage the parent group. Oak Park is the PTSO. I would think that would mean at least attending one meeting, supporting our fundraisers, and hopefully inviting us to staff appreciation luncheon, the one time every parent takes off from work to thank our teachers, which we were not allowed to attend this year. The next rule is 9.101, which specifically says parents shall be welcomed to school and made partners in decision. Partners to me means you at least know there's an issue or a decision being made. The next rule is 2.261, retaliation. We shouldn't be afraid to speak up for our children. It specifically says family empowerment. The school would encourage family empowerment. Why am I scared to speak up on my child's behalf that my child's going to be put into a violent classroom? And I want to ask.
Thank you.
Oh, okay.
Please hand those over to
Yes.
the desk on the left. No clapping, please. No clapping. This clapping is not allowed. Please.
Madam Chair, can we all get a copy of her presentation? That would be.
She's going to give it to Kathy
Okay.
Thompkins. Next up, we have Barbara Connors. Barbara?
Hi, I'm Barbara Connors. I'm actually a parent at Oak Park. My son Zachary Connors is 7 years old. He came from Laurel and Nokomis in the autism unit in October of last year. To get him transferred there because of behavioral issues. was such a struggle. Part of his IEP that they made many referrals and recommendations that he go for ABA therapy, applied behavioral analysis therapy, to help him get his behavior in line so he can achieve academic success and socialize even better. I got him over into Oak Park, and I already had ABA therapy started in September of last year. His therapy, he was approved by our insurance after my husband took a job switch of 10 years of, went to another company who approved autism coverage, which is very rare. And he's there getting his ABA therapy 5 days a week. I was given a hard time by the administration saying that I'm pulling him out of school an hour and a half early every day because of the fact that he's missing out on vital academic things. I made arrangements with his teacher to make sure that he received all his core academics in the beginning of the day. So the only thing that he would ever have to miss is maybe something simple, like snack time or story time, and that's exactly what he was missing. They pulled me into a care meeting in November, end of November, beginning of December, to discuss the fact that they were marking him as unexcused from school, even though he was there the whole day, except for that hour and a half. And I was told by the administration, who was Nicole Mayo, as well as his teacher was pulled out of the class, all his therapists, a school psychologist, and a couple of other people. I even made arrangements for his ABA therapist to attend that meeting. And they told me over and over, well, it's not excused. I said, where is this rule coming from? I said, I gave you documentation from his doctor, his ABA therapist. I said, and there's the guidelines from the Department of Education saying that you cannot deny a student any type of medical treatment if it's to their benefit. You cannot count it against them. I said, where is this rule coming from? And I was told that this is from the school district. I came to the school district. They told me that's not our rule. That's something that they're taking the rule at that school and they're turning it into making it work for themselves. So they're penalizing other parents because they're trying to help their kid succeed by taking them to therapies. And I can't have ABA therapy at the school because they only allow 30 minutes. And his ABA therapist said, I'm sorry, but 30 minutes is not enough of therapy because it usually takes 10 to 15 minutes just to get the child settled down and ready to focus. So once you have that going on, there's no success in that. So now my son goes from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. this summer for ABA therapy, and it was the best decision I ever made.
Thank you. Next, Sarah Blackwell.
Hi, I apologize. I have laryngitis. My name is Sarah Blackwell. I'm a human rights and employment lawyer. I am here to speak about sexual harassment and threats by Jeffrey Maltzby and sexual harassment claims against Mr. Bowden. The text messages of over 800 text messages and emails speak for themselves that Mr. Maltzby sent to Ms. Bonner. They are so vulgar that I would not be able to say them in here. They are written and documentary evidence, and as a result, Mr. Maltzby got a paid vacation. I think that is a horrible, horrible message that we are sending to our students and to the women who work under Mr. Maltzby and Mr. Bowden. I think that it is a shame that under this Me Too movement in 2019, when there are so much evidence, against Mr. Maltzby and against what he has done to Ms. Bonner, that not only did he not get unpaid vacation, but he didn't get terminated. Mr. Bowden has created an environment where this is okay, and this kind of action and this inaction when the sexual harassment occurs is allowed. Mr. Maltzby immediately removed his door, which had a window on it, to have a door with no window, so that he could, I don't know what's the purpose of that other than to intimidate women. If we cannot depend on the school board to make proper decisions when the issue is easy, how are we going to depend on the school board to make decisions when the issues are hard. If you do not hold these men accountable for the acts that they are doing against women, then we are going to hold the elected school board officials to accountable for the sins of these men. The women in the Sarasota school county are over 80 to 90% of the employees. We need to protect them and make them feel safe to speak out. I am here to speak out on behalf of Ms. Bonner, Amy, Lena, and Sue. And I am here to ask you guys to do what is right and to look yourself in the mirror and say, am I doing the right thing? And if not, please fire Mr. Bowden and fire Mr. Maltzby so that we can protect the future women who are too afraid to stand up and the future victims. Thank you.
No clapping. I will clear this chamber with the next time I have to ask you all not to clap, please. Next up, I have Anderson Blackwell.
My name is Anderson Blackwell, and I'm a 5th grade student at Philippi Shores Elementary. I just wanted to say all women should be treated with respect and should be treated the same. And what is happening is not okay, and you should fire Maltzby. Thank you. Thank you.
Next up, Gina Montero.
Hi, my name is Gina Montero. I'm a member of this community. I'm here today to talk about my concerns over how the reports of sexual harassment are being handled for district employees and what is being done to support those facing harassment in their workplace. My attention was brought to this issue because of what I've learned about Jeff Maltzby and his continuous harassment of his administrative assistant. We know that in March, Jeff threatened Miss Bonner because he knew that she was going to start telling people what he had put her through as an administrative assistant. We know from the details that have been made public knowledge of the inexcusably and understandably unbearable and degrading sexual comments and constant flirtation, drunk videos, late night, inappropriate and personal messages, over 800 in a year, a single year. The receipts are there and the reports are there, but where is the consequences? He's only been in his position for 2 years. The harassment started almost immediately and has escalated quickly. It's completely unacceptable to me that this abusive situation has gotten this far. We need to recognize the courage that it takes to speak up when you're facing abuse, especially sexual harassment. It can seem like the cards are stacked against you, and they often are, as we see here. Abusers like Jeff Maltzby can be experts in getting and wielding power and using fear to benefit themselves. Too often, survivors are judged and doubted for being in a situation out of their control, asked why they didn't do something or say something, but when they do report, they are often met with further doubt and an inadequate investigation process that only further places them in danger. To advocate for yourself, to believe that you can escape a scary and seemingly hopeless situation and act on that will to see change, that takes incredible strength. And that's what Ms. Bonner has done here today. That is what she's done by making her complaints. She did not deserve the abuse she's faced by Jeff Maltzby, and she deserves to have gotten much more support than she has. She should not have had to spend so long facing this harassment in the first place, having to debate the impossible decision of what to do. She should not have had to feel like reporting could risk retaliation in the first place. When she did report, she should not have had to stay in that abusive situation that had just been escalated for 6 weeks. She should not have been isolated from her work while Jeff could continue to do his. She should not have had to make multiple complaints to multiple people to get something done. If this is the system for addressing sexual harassment in district workplaces, we need a new one. Everyone deserves to be safe and free from violence and harassment at work. No one should have to go through what Ms. Bonner has gone through. Someone needs to be held accountable for the harm that has been done to her.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Stefan Naz?
It's actually Stefan White.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you, school board members. My name is Stefan Weiss. I'm the father of Liam Weiss at Oak Park. The reason I'm here is some articles that were in the paper in the last couple of weeks in the month. His teacher was assaulted the second day of school last year, and nobody from the school let me know the consequences and what happened with this. And I have a child with cerebral palsy who went to school for a whole year with a substitute teacher, and nobody can explain to me why he doesn't deserve the opportunity to repeat the 11th grade, because nobody could tell me what system is in place to prevent this from happening. I heard another woman speak about how her child is now being put into a cafeteria with children that have a violent propensity. I've heard it said that there are many as 35 incidents a day at Oak Park that are not being judged. You also have as many as 40, 50 substitutes that are not even trained how to deal with the children on the autism, the cerebral palsy spectrum. I am very blessed. I have a son that can communicate. He tells me everything. But to come home from school and go, well, what can you tell me about my teacher? Well, what do you mean about your teacher? Well, he got beat up in the lunchroom. He was bloodied in the lunchroom. And nobody from here, from this school district, mentioned anything for a whole year. This is in addition to not even following his IEP throughout the year. His IEP doesn't say the substitute teacher can qualify and do all this stuff. He backslid for the whole year. So if you read this newspaper article, you will find that this gentleman was out for the whole year. He's permanently damaged. I'm very blessed that my son wasn't, but here's the consequence of that. The person he was protecting was my son. It's mentioned in the article. Having spoken with that teacher now, the person he was protecting was in a wheelchair. How can you even have that in a school system where you don't even protect your teachers? Your teachers aren't even given a voice at that school because the administration has got it set so, no, this is the way we've decided it's going to happen. Your teachers aren't even speaking to you right now. Somebody on this board mentioned in the newspaper, oh, isn't that funny how that comes up when contract negotiations are coming up with teachers, that this all comes to a head? Somebody on this board knew about this. I don't know if any of you have ever been to Oak Park or visited on a regular basis, but you sit up here and talk about, this school's an A now, this is a B, this is an A. You have an opportunity at Oak Park to make it one of the best schools in the nation. And yet you all are sitting over here saying, well, let's clap for the A's and the B's, but don't clap for what everybody else has to say over here. You can see I'm very passionate about this because he's got no choice. He's going back to that school next year. There's some great people at that school. Great. But you guys don't even acknowledge that. You're sitting up here talking about compensation for moving from an A to a B. And now I got to worry about my kid going to school and get beat up by other kids who can't help themselves. So I don't blame them. I blame you, and you. Because you're not supporting Jamie to get the things done that she needs. When you have a school with 35 substitute teachers and kids on a spectrum of learning from here to here, I know what I'm talking about. Why? Because I moved to Sarasota because of this school system. The core is right, but the rest of it's all messed up. I had a son that went to Pineview.
Thank you.
He graduated in college in 3 years. So I see what opportunities are here.
Thank you.
But you're totally ignoring Oak Park. You've totally pushed them off to the side.
No, we
You're
haven't.
not addressing anything.
Thank you, sir.
But you make comments in the newspaper on what you think, and then you don't want the public to
Thank
talk.
you, sir. Please be seated.
Jane? Go call the next person.
Gloria Allegra.
Hello, I'm Gloria. My son Mark goes to Oak Park. I'm a single mother that deals with my child. He has no voice. You have to deal with trying to read what they have to say to you and cipher why is he going off, why is he doing this. And it's very hard. And Oak Park School was one of the best schools there ever was. The teachers are outstanding. The paras were great. This gentleman here before me said, we have 40% of our staff are substitutes. They don't understand that. They want my son to go to the cafeteria. My son is a 5'11" child who's close to 300 pounds, and all he does is grab other people's food. It's an open smorgasbord for him. And then he can turn around and grab the wrong person's food and get belted for it. I'm worried about that for my child. It's a very hard thing you can't even tell him, don't touch that. You have to just guide him. When he eats in the classroom, the teachers were great. Everybody was kept separate, and Mark didn't do anything to his fellow classmates. That's what I want. I'm here to protect my child and every child at Oak Park. We need to band together to get them teachers. I saw you on TV and you said we had 74 openings, and the first words out of my mouth was, they're all at Oak Park. I'm sure they're not, but there's tons of openings at Oak Park that need to be filled. And we have refrigerators, stoves, and microwaves that have been taken out of the school, which we got approval for them from the school board, and they're giving them to another school. So you're giving our money to another school with all our refrigerators, microwaves, and stoves that they're giving to another school. We're afraid of retaliation. We don't know where, if we ask the wrong questions. If I ask, is my son's going to be okay? Stuff like that. We're afraid it's going to come back on our children. So we're very quiet about a lot of things. And it's sad, because Oak Park School can be the best, be what it used to be. The reason why all of us wear these shirts to support the school. We love that school. We want to make it better. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Danny Ezel.
I'm Daniel Ezel, the father of Alexis Ezel. She's 16 years old, nonverbal, autism, and she has seizures pretty often. Been at this school for the last decade. We've had 4 children go through the Sarasota system. Past 2 decades, 3 on to get advanced degrees. We're blessed with Alexis. We're her voice. She can't talk. We're appalled that over the past 2 years, when we were brought together, 80 to 100 parents and others, to decide on who was going to be the principal of our school. Everything we spent the 2 hours on has been ignored, and we got this principal. She has decimated our PTSO. There's retaliation against teachers that don't go her way. My daughter, this past Thursday, was crying like crazy at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. We got a call at 1:36 to get her. My wife showed up 10 minutes later. She's standing on the other side of a bar, like out in a jail, with this principal and 2 others right next to her. She was there for an hour, and we have witnesses. Then we find out on Sunday afternoon, as my wife is bathing her, that she has a grapefruit-sized bruise under her breast. DCFS was met with yesterday. I'll be speaking with the sheriffs later. It was determined it was an intentional harm, not a foul. I asked for a report from this lady's office today. What happened? I got nothing. So, pending advice of attorney, I have no more to say, but something needs to be done. And the individuals that were the good choices for our school, they don't play golf with you, Mr. Bowden. But the one that was chosen does. We didn't know that was a prerequisite. Thank you.
Debbie Ezel. Rhoda C. Oh.
Hi. Okay, I've emailed you all this week. And you, most of you over there. And my concern is for our children, the nonverbal children. They can't provide for themselves. They can't fight for themselves. They can't speak for themselves. What happened this week can never happen again. If you saw the bruise that my child has on her breast, and it was determined by DCF an intentional harm. And it wasn't at home. So they're coming to the school to figure it out. And we don't know who did it. There are 9 children in her classroom for summer school with 1 teacher, 2 paras. My daughter is incontinent, so she needs a diaper change. Or she has her period, she needs a pull-up change. She needs her pad changed. Who, if there are 1 person with 9 children, who's watching them? Whose eyes are on those kids? Whose eyes? It takes 1 second for somebody to grab my daughter and twist her right breast to the point that she was screaming on Thursday for an hour outside. I was told she left the classroom 2 times with her para, 2 times with the response team. Okay? She was telling us, not because she has no words, but with her reaction to what was happening. And did anybody do anything? No. I showed up on campus and they were holding her inside, like in jail, against those 8-foot gates, handing me her folders through it, and I was dictated policy. Policy was, well, we can't let her leave through that gate. She just wanted to leave because we didn't know she had a bruise the size of your fist on her breast. You know what? Somebody has to have some common sense on this school and listen to us. Parents, we know our children. We know them. I know her dearly. And I worry about retaliation. I do. Because I've already felt it, because I've already been kept off campus forever. And you know that. And that's not appropriate. And you need to take action for it. And you need to listen to us, because we're not going to stop. We will take this. We'll go forward with it. This is the safety of her.
Thank you. Rhoda Sears.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rhoda Sears, and I'm a parent of a student at Oak Park. You know, I've been listening to everybody speaking here today, and I've spent the last week and a half in a real deep introspection as to how to even begin to address the people that might be in a position to do something about what's happening at Oak Park, or what has happened at Oak Park. I'll start by saying my son is not at Oak Park of my own free will. My former husband unilaterally placed him there without consulting me and without my approval. But it was something that I ended up having to accept, and I had to figure out how to work within this environment, even though it was not the least restrictive environment for my son. And inside of that, I really count upon the school system and upon the principal and upon the staff at that school to work with me in partnership. And I think for the most part that they've done a really decent job of that, the staff and the teachers and the therapists. I do have a bit of a deep bone chip on my shoulder with regard to what I thought was a very open and honest relationship with the principal of that school. I've met with her on a couple of occasions, once in 2017 and once again after 5 months of begging for an appointment in February of 2019. My son is Liam Weiss, and he was the boy in the wheelchair that Mr. Brenner was harmed when he was trying to protect him. So what I would ask all of you to do, every one of you, is to sit here and think for just a moment as to what it was you came here to do today. Did you come here to listen? Did you come here to stay in judgment? Did you come here to justify your position or to be heard? I mean, because whatever it was that was your agenda, that shuts you down from opening up to any other possibility that anything anybody else has to say is trying to offer you. And I'm not saying I'm perfect at it, but I have really, really been trying to listen, because there are people that are trying to do a job. There are people that are trying to save their jobs. There are parents that are trying to advocate for their kids. There are school board members who are really trying to do the best that they can for an entire county that they're here to serve. And I don't have the answers, but I do know that unleashing human potential has nothing to do with reaching a peak. It has everything to do with the trajectory that we're on. And so if you don't each of us ask ourselves what trajectory we're on, what's that path look like, sound like, feel like, taste like? And then here's the most important thing with regard to Oak Park, because I can't speak for any other school, although my son graduated successfully. My older son graduated successfully from Pineview, and he just graduated. Just look at it from the humanity. Look at it from the children who don't have a voice.
Thank you so much. Dr. Bowden?
I'd like to thank our final speaker, because I think she hit it right on the nose, is that we have to keep an open mind and receive the information. And you'll see I took copious notes as each speaker came to the podium, and I take each one of these issues at face value. I look forward to working constructively with the principal. It's one of our most difficult principalships, and we'll address these issues. I welcome an invitation to interact with your PTSO. I'll work with the principal, I'll work with our executive director, and we'll hit these issues head on as an organization.
Well, I will hope that this would happen, because Oak Park is one of our jewels as far as I'm concerned. People do move here for Oak Park. I consider it to be a great, great school. And anything that I can do, anything I think most any of us on this board can do to help, we certainly want to do that. And we don't have all the answers, and we don't know everything that's going on, but be confident that we want to solve these problems before school begins in the next year. And this is a good time to get together and to discuss these things. For those of you with students at Oak Park and with students that aren't verbal, that are special disabilities, special needs, you know, my heart goes out to you, because this is a hard road. And I know how you feel about your student and your child, and we don't want to discount any of you in any way. So please help us and give us a little chance to get together. I think Dr. Bowden has some meetings planned later this week, and we will definitely get this cleared up in the very near future. Anyone else? Shirley Brown.
I've received several emails, and I've tried to respond to them all, letting them know that you're here. And I have forwarded the information on to Dr. Bowden and staff. And there's also been some back and forth on the Facebook also. And there was an editorial in the paper, which I know Dr. Bowden, we talked while I was out of town. We talked when I came back, and we talked again this afternoon. But at 2:30, I received an email from someone, and I think it's very pertinent to what we're saying today. It was brought to my attention today that there was consideration to remove the administration from Oak Park School. I'm not sure who was considering this, so please forward this to the appropriate person or persons. Until you have worked at Oak Park daily, you cannot sit in judgment on staff or administration. The fact is that many of the students that attend our school now are much different than those that attended even 5 years ago. The state makes changes in what is allowed at schools without even considering a school like ours. Our administrators try to support all students first. They come into the classroom to support learning. They kick their shoes off and sit on the floor with students that are in a crisis. They house those students in their own offices that are in the most severe crisis when needed. When they see a situation happening outside their window, they jumped in to help. They have told staff, go take a break, I've got this, when they see the need. They try to be creative in helping students to learn, to make consequences for those students in need of them, to be something that will help them grow and not to miss regular class time. When others might think suspend them, they say, let's try this instead. So they themselves will go with the student and have them clean up in the cafe when they've thrown food, which they started a fight. It really makes the kids think twice about doing that again, knowing they have to clean up all that mess. They use the counselors to do restorative sessions so that the students can be heard and talk through what's set off the conflict to begin with. It's a constant think on your feet, juggling students, staff, and parents kind of days. Please consider the students and the bonds they have made with this administration and how it'll affect them if the people they look to are not there. What message will it send them when the ladies they look to for comfort, advice, and consistency in their lives are not there anymore? What we need is not another change in administration. We need support for them and for all our staff, to have training and clear guidance so we can help all of our students and staff have successful days. Help us keep some consistency and do not remove our administrators. No one is perfect or has all the answers, but these ladies try hard every day to find the answers needed to help our students be as successful as possible. And that's sort of where we are. We get different, we've got legislators not understanding our students, and we sometimes have parents wanting something for their children, which might be in opposition for the parents of this student. You talk about the student who wanted their child to be protected. Well, there's the parent over here that doesn't want their child to be held back. We've got to try all of that, and I know he's taken the information that I've given him. I saw him writing every time. We're going to be talking to this. The staff and the superintendent and the administration and every board member here really care. We care about Oak Park. We care about the parents have to say. And we care about making change. We'll make some changes in our schools, I'm sure, that those we can. But we may need to make some changes in Tallahassee, too. We've been trying to make the changes to the requirement for the testing. We also need to make some changes, I think, probably for what coursework is expected. Hopefully that we can ask, for your help in getting those things done too. But please be aware that we want to work with you and not against you, and keep an open mind on trying to help those things be solved. And again, as much as I spent last week and the week before conferring with a lot of you on email, I will. Hopefully the superintendent and administration will get back to you and maybe have a parents' meeting at the school that we can all be comfortable moving forward. That's what we all care about. These students are very special. They need our help. And we need all to be working together and pushing in the same direction. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Robinson.
Mr. Wise, you are 100% true, accurate. Everything you said. This is not a good day to be a school board member. I hate to say it, but you're right. And the point goes to me, too. I'm glad you pointed at everybody, because it also includes me. It's our responsibility, every person on this dais. Yeah, it's our responsibility to educate the kids, but it's also our jobs to make sure that they're safe. And the safety of people like this young lady right here who can't communicate, we have a higher responsibility to people like her, to Deborah's daughter. I'm sorry, I forgot your daughter's name. I'm sorry? Alexis. We have a higher responsibility to Alexis. And this isn't something, I'm glad you guys came out and told us. And if you do not hear what you want to hear, if you don't get the changes you want to see, hold us accountable. I expect Mr. Wise will. I hope everybody else does too. He doesn't seem like the quitter kind of guy, are you?
No clapping.
But we can't say it's Tallahassee, it's the administration, it's us. I mean, the buck stops here. And so I just I hope you come back with a report and let us know what's going on. That you speak to the teachers, speak to the parents. I mean, we knew, but the first time that we clearly knew was in April when the teachers came and put a newspaper article telling us people are being harmed, and it was clear that it was happening at Oak Park. I mean, nothing that anybody told us today we didn't know about. We didn't know months ago. We were told. The teachers want to do the right thing. But like the other people had said, Deborah had said, when it's one person with 9 people, what are they to do? I mean, they're short-staffed. And so for the teachers to decide, well, I'll just take an ad out to make sure people knew. I mean, this is something that was known. And I think we were told in April that in July we were going to get some sort of report. Now, I know July is not over with, so I'm hoping we have 2 more meetings in July. We're going to get some sort of report about those workman's comp issues. We got 3 more weeks before school starts, and Alexis should not have to deal with that. I am sorry, Deborah. I'm sorry what happened to your daughter. If I could take it back, I would. But that's a travesty what happened. And I can't imagine having to sit at that gate and see your daughter and somebody quoting chapter and verse of policy when there are some rules that apparently people don't adhere to, and there's other rules that people decide to. So shame on us. Shame on us.
Mrs. Zucker?
I just want you to know that I have heard you. I've been answering some of you on Facebook. And I took all of the Facebook memos that I got and scratched out the name because you were all afraid that if somebody would know who you were, you'd get in trouble. So I can assure you, I scratched out the names, took them all off, and gave them to the superintendent last week. And the superintendent and I sat down and he went through every point, and that is what he is going to work on. I've also been working with Mrs. Sonia Alves Figueroa. No, Figueroa Alves. Sorry, Sonia. By the time I leave here, I'll get your name right. And I know she's setting up a meeting, and I asked her to let me know when it was, because I would like to attend so I can hear what's going on. But I will not be talking. I'll be sitting in the back just listening, because I want to be able to hear the communication back and forth that goes on. And I'm sorry for what you all are going through. I really am. I have a high-functioning autistic grandson, so I am slightly familiar with what it is that you're doing, what's happening. But we have heard you, and we will do our best to make sure that, at least, if nothing else, as long as we can communicate with you, so we can tell you where it's coming from. Is this our rule? Is it the state's rule? Is it the federal rule? Where is it coming from? Do we have any control over it? I don't even know which is which, and neither do you. So. The state always says it's our rule. I can't go back and forth with you, but the state, in many instances, says it's our rule, and it isn't. Not your children.
The policies are your rule. We can't talk back and forth.
I can't talk back and forth with you. I'm sorry.
We can talk after the.
I am open. I don't feel intimidated. I'm happy to hear from you. I've been trying to answer you. I can't talk with you. You want to talk to me later? I'll be out there. Thank you all for coming, and I know we will resolve this.
Yes, I know we will too, and thank you all for being here. We hear you, we hear your students, and I know that our wonderful principal is here, and we will take care of this. This will be resolved shortly. Thank you for being here. Next up, that is the end of this hearing of citizens. Do we have any additions or corrections to our agenda, Dr. Bowden?
Yes, ma'am. Item number 6, approval of the instructional classified personnel report. An addendum was added after the agenda was made available to the public. And item number 29, approval of the 1925-year capital plan, has been moved to new business.
Do I have a motion?
I'd like a question. Do your light on, Eric? Eric's light's on, so.
Eric, you have a question here?
No, I asked 3 weeks ago to move the minutes to new business.
And we voted, I know we voted.
For what reason?
Miss, I have to say the reason. So if I want to,
But it wasn't your reason, was it? Was it something to do with Mrs. Brown?
I'm confused. So in order to move something to new business, I have to have a reason?
Did you ask to move the minutes because Mrs. Brown made a change? That's my question.
I asked to move the minutes. I asked 3 weeks ago to move the minutes.
Is that the one we took a vote on?
And that was when Mrs. Brown was making a small, minute change to the minutes as they were written, correct? Do you remember that, Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
I was making a change to the minutes, but that was in the time allowed before
That was
they were
in the time
published.
allowed, correct. But Mr. Robinson thinks that they should have been moved, which they should not have been. So it was not moved as a result of that because it was within the time. You get the minutes back, you take a look at them. If there were changes, you can make changes to them. If there were changes to voting or other things, perhaps we'd move them to new business. But because there was what was the change that you made now?
I remember.
It was a minor little change. I don't remember what it was. It was just a correction in something. It wasn't a change, it was a correction. And it was in the time allotted.
So therefore, we would not have moved them as a rule.
Okay, so if I ask 3 weeks in advance to get something moved, it doesn't get moved.
It could if you wanted it moved for a specific reason, Eric, but this was not your addition or change. This was Mrs. Brown.
I have not said what my additional change was. I asked to have the minutes moved 3 weeks in advance. If I can't, then okay, let's move on.
Can I ask, isn't this the one we voted on?
So
No.
for what reason
And
were
we
you?
voted not
I
to
mean,
move. Do you remember?
you can move them, yes, but I thought you were doing that.
There
to
were
stick a vote.
minutes that you all voted on. These are different. These are minutes from a different meeting, though. These are different minutes.
I thought that
the ones that are on your agenda
The
now.
scuttlebutt that went between you and Mrs. Brown about changes to the minutes. Do you remember that, Mrs. Brown? There was some dialogue between you and Eric about, well, why can't, if there is a change, then should it be moved? And you said, no, it's within the time and it's only a minor change. Normally, you have the time allotted to make a change to the minutes, and if it's something just of a very small nature that doesn't affect the entire minutes, then you would make that change and present that.
If you guys the majority, you don't want to move the business, then let's move on.
All right, any other discussion of the consent agenda as revised?
No, ma'am.
Yeah, yes. I would like to know what the changes were on the employee patrol, because I didn't see the attached new addendum for on new employees or the shifting and moving. I read those reports, and I like to know where people are going.
Is it attached now?
No.
I read through them.
The last
Talking about the
one.
instructional, the classified personnel report?
Yeah.
The addendum to that is attached to the agenda item number 6.
But somebody has put up the voting thing already.
Yeah, how do we get out of it? We can't X out of it.
I don't have that, so I don't.
I have it here. There's 6 pages.
6 pages of changes? Of additions?
Yes, addendum number 1.
Okay. All right. I'll look at it after.
Oh, yeah, it's attached.
That would have come to us in a separate email.
But then that would have been published.
We didn't get an
On
email about
time,
this.
it doesn't be, doesn't need to be.
Right. Okay. Do we have a motion?
Yes.
And a second?
I'll second it, or move it, whatever one we're at.
Okay.
I'll move the changes as presented.
Okay, please vote. Excuse me a minute.
Yeah, everybody's voted.
Except for me.
Oh.
And I can't get my click.
Just say aye.
There's one abstain.
You're just trying to hit forward.
Yeah.
Is it touchscreen?
Hold up. Hold on.
It's not working.
You have to hit confirm to confirm.
So it's already been confirmed.
I did it, see?
Yeah, you have to hit confirm to confirm your vote.
I did it.
I'd never
Okay.
done it.
I confirmed mine 3 times.
And the vote passes 4 approved and 1 absent. Okay. Moving right along to new business. May I have a motion on item number 28, please?
I move the appointment of the 2019-2020 Value Adjustment Board representative alternative from the Sarasota School Board.
Second.
I would just like to mention that we probably should bring up all of our appointments for school board members and discuss that at the August workshop.
Yes.
So all those people that are on various different committees, will discuss it at that time.
Is part of this motion appointing particular individuals to these spots?
I assume it's to reappoint Joe Hembry.
Yeah, is there somebody we're appointing, or what is this?
I have not seen an attachment that has a name, so.
I didn't see a name either.
So I think we probably withdraw this, or?
Can I make a motion to amend to include Joe Hembry and Eric Robinson as the school board and the citizen member?
Why Joe Hembry? You don't have to approve that by the school board, just you and your alternate.
Oh, okay. Then, because Joe Hembry he doesn't get approved every year?
I believe that the school board, I have not looked at the statute recently, but I believe that the school board appoints one of its members and then also appoints a public member to the Value Adjustment Board.
And currently, right now, it's...
We have to appoint a member and we have to appoint an alternate. Is Eric willing to serve again? Is there somebody going to be the alternate?
Right now, I haven't missed a meeting, but right now I believe it's Ms. Ziegler, but I'm sure she's happy to take anybody else. But
do you know if she still wants to serve? Well, I would imagine, unless we have any objections.
I'll be the alternate.
Okay, Ms. Zucker will be there.
Okay, so we will appoint.
I'll make a motion to amend the previous motion to make the school board representative Eric Robinson and the alternate Caroline Zucker.
Please vote.
Well,
is there a second for that?
I'll second that.
And
all right, so you're now voting on amending the motion.
Right.
So you'll probably need to do that by voice vote.
Correct. Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mrs. Ziegler? I mean, Mrs. Zucker?
How many times are you going to do that?
Yes.
Mr. Robinson?
Yes.
And I vote yes. It passes 4 votes when absent.
So now you have to vote on the motion as
And now-
amended.
And now we'll vote on the motion as amended.
I move the motion. I move that we appoint Eric Robinson as
We've already done that.
We've already done that.
We got the motion. Now
We
we've
got
got
the
to vote.
motion. It's been amended. You just need to vote, assuming there's no further
Okay,
discussion.
we're going to
Just
go ahead and.
vote up here. Vote.
All right.
Confirm.
So we have a motion and we have a second?
I voted.
We already.
Voted.
Me too.
Okay, and it passes 4 votes for, 1 vote absent.
All right. I would move that the school board adopt the 2019-2020 5-year capital improvement plan as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? Mr. Robinson?
I obviously will be voting no, consistency with all my other votes about privatization of the public school system, and I will be voting against diverting the funds. So I'll be voting no.
Mrs. Zucker?
Just a clarification, we are not voting to privatize the public school system. I really want that very clear, because I'm a public school advocate.
I was referring to the money.
It didn't sound like that, so I just want to be very clear.
Let's talk about diverting of money.
To charter schools. And I did receive a letter from charter schools stating that, they appreciated our giving them that money, that they thought they were entitled to that money, and they would be happy to meet with any one of us individually and discuss how they were going to use those funds.
Well, there was a letter that came out telling us where they were going to use it.
Right.
And it was for construction, purchase of land, technology.
Buses.
And safety and security.
And school buses.
But they would be willing to show us or do a show and tell in any school, is what they were stating.
Because the question was, that's capital money and that can only be used for capital purposes. Couldn't be used for operating purposes. So I wanted to make sure that it was being used for capital, and it is.
Because there was a question about that at one point, I think, in some discussion we had with them at some other time. Dr. Bowden, do you have any questions?
I do not.
Okay, so moving right along.
I'm
have
cute.
to vote.
Already voted.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Brown.
I'm going to vote. This is the capital improvement plan. It's our 5-year plan. It tells us how we're going to use our capital funds. A major portion of our budget has to do with capital funds, and this is how we are going to be using it and expanding our schools or refreshing our schools and lots of other things that we're doing. It's open there and available to the public to see, but the majority of this budget is the 5-year capital plan on how we are using our capital dollars for our schools and our security systems.
And I, too, will be voting for this because we have gone over this list of schools a number of times, and most of them are already in progress. I know looking at several of the schools that have work being done this summer, some of them are going to really have an entirely different look in the fall. So I think that it's a great plan and a great look going forward for some of those projects that are so needed. And we've done so many of our safety and security hardening of our buildings, so I think we're ahead of the game in terms of what a lot of other school districts are looking at right now. Mrs. Zucker.
That's what I wanted to explain. Last year, because of safety and security issues, we had to move a good portion of our budget into safety and security and delay some of the renovations that we had to make at our schools. So this year, we're now trying to catch up with what we had to do last year by not having the ability to renovate our schools. So hopefully we'll be on schedule by 1920.
Mrs. Brown.
And I would encourage anyone who's trying to, what all this is about, is to click on our meeting on 7/16 and go down to it's number 29. There's an attachment. There's a lot of valuable information in here besides a nice picture of all of us.
Pictures.
But there's pictures about what we're doing, but there's also projections for each of our schools on what we project the student enrollment to be at those schools, what our goals are on all of those schools. So it's a valuable piece of information that now that we've brought it up and we're discussing it, that there's a lot more in here than anything that we've said today, that because we've gone over it several times. But I encourage you to go through that and look at it. Don't print it. There's a lot of pages, 73 pages. But look at it, look through it, and see what it is we're doing with those tax dollars.
Any other questions? Comments? Please vote. And the vote passes 3 approval, 1 vote no, 1 vote absent. And that ends new business. Next, we have announcements and communications. Anyone have an announcement or special thing to add at this point in the meeting? Well, I have a couple of things I'd like to add. One is that our Capital City consulting contract with our lobbying is ending its initial 3-year period, and there's a provision to renew at the same terms and conditions for 2 additional 1-year periods. Would you all like Carol LaShawn to contact Capital City Consulting and renew for another year at the same terms and conditions?
I would.
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Robinson.
if you remember the three that were narrowed down to for the lobbyists last time, and not to bash Capitol, it was Southern Strategies and the Ballard Group. I mean, you can't get a more powerful lobbying team than the Ballard Group. And I mean, I think everybody knows now, since what happened to Brian Ballard and the Ballard Partnership since 3 years ago. I mean, the access that the Ballard partners have now over the past, obviously for the last 4 years, has been exponential. And Southern Strategies is one of the most well-respected lobbying groups in the country, actually, and so is Ballard Group. I mean, now Ballard Group, obviously now everybody knows they're a federal lobbyist also. I think we should, if nothing else, go out and look to see what other lobbying groups are out there and how much they cost. And I mean, legislative agendas and things going to Tallahassee is a really big issue. We just talked about it today. I don't see anything wrong with going out and seeing what else is out there and what else we can explore, because getting things done in Tallahassee is something we talk about all the time. And there's a lot of things that we talk about and are just frustrated. And maybe if we, got back and went to people like Southern Strategies and Ballard Group, we could actually, accomplish some of the stuff. Ballard Partners, I keep calling Ballard Group. And I'm not saying to not go with Capitol. I'm just saying, why wouldn't we just open it up and look to see what else is out there? I don't see there's anything harm, and since we're using taxpayers' money, to see what other options are available for us.
Well, at one time, when we first got a lobbyist back after the recession, we chose Becker Polyakoff, and they were the big dog in the state and did a lot with education. Had big accounts like Miami-Dade and Palm Beach and Broward counties, except that they really didn't have much time for us. And so we had them for a year, and they were thought to be just the best on the block, and we really didn't get much out of that at all. We were assigned a new lawyer lobbyist in Tallahassee who knew nothing about education. We've worked with capital cities for 3 years. I think they have done a fine job in communicating with us. They have one of the greatest policy former school board administrators in Palm Beach County in Vern Pickup Crawford. They have a new lawyer they've brought on board, Megan Fay, who I think has done an admirable job. They are involved in state meetings that we attend and so forth, and Ron LaFace is very well connected. I think maybe having someone that's not quite the largest player in the pack would be good in this regard. So I have no problem at all in asking Carol to go out for this. Mrs. Brown?
I know that we've been getting daily updates during the session, and they came back to us after session to give us what's happened and ready for us to go through next. And when I was up in Tallahassee, they had appointments made with all of our legislators for me to meet with, and came with me to meet with them. And I know that they meet with not only the key legislators, but also staff and DOE, and also
and the governor.
Tell us what's happening on the federal level. So I'm happy with the information they're giving us, and the reports that we're getting back from them, and the service that I'm getting when I go to Tallahassee.
Okay, so I think we will move forward with this. The tentative budget meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, July 23rd at 4 o'clock. The public hearing to adopt tentative millage and budget meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, July 30th, 2019 at 5:15, and the next monthly board meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, August the 6th, 2019 at 6:30. Before we end, I just wanted to say that Mr. Hardy was able to get a policy, a draft of a policy for our audit committee, which I will share with all of you. I will be going over to the Teacher of the Year award Thursday night in Orlando. Keep your fingers crossed for our wonderful finalist. I will be in Tallahassee July 25th and 26th, and we'll be going to a Summer Leadership Institute meeting in Chicago the 15th through the 18th of August, and attend a meeting in Tallahassee next week. All of these things will be paid for by the State School Board Association and not by the district. Any other comments or questions or announcements? We're adjourned.